time to listen to me grind. Take down the film watchers and nerds all at once.
Yo, so I just released the latest update for the prospect database, or whatever we call it. I thought I'd talk about it for a little while before I have to run. I'm really starting to try and keep to kind of a daily video thing. My goal is 2 videos a week. So far, I'm doing more than that. So, let's keep pushing, right? But anyway, this is the... How am I going to show you this? Look, over here on Patreon, where I host a link, free, guys. Don't worry about it. But you click on the first post here, and it takes you straight to the database. I just updated it for all the latest stuff I've been making videos about. So, if you skip over in the tabs here, you can see all the positional data and stuff, and all my new models are in there. The conference hit rate, stuff like that. I've also included that hit rate lookup thing that I made a video about. Which is pretty cool, I think. Let me zoom in here. And I've just got some random players typed in here to test that it worked. What else did I add? I added average NFL stats in year 1 for draft round, but also I broke it down by a 12 bucket of draft pick per position. I thought that was pretty neat. And yeah, explore. There's a bunch of stuff in there. It's pretty interesting. Someone who isn't actually a Patreon, though, he actually asked me a question. He's not a Patreon, but he talks to me constantly on Twitter, and he shares my links and shares my videos. He's a good friend, you know? He was asking me about making kind of a composite database for himself, because, as I've mentioned before, I'm tracking a lot of stuff. Not all of it everyone will be interested in. So I want to make... I don't know how best to go about that yet. I kind of want to make a video... look, here's how you use Google Sheets to make your own. But I don't know if I can add to what's already known about Google Sheets. But something I wanted to point out to you just with this MS update is originally I did have this all in one tab, all the positions all together. And one of the consequences of that is a lot of the stuff is lined up. So if you make a copy of the database, which, I've told you about before, but if you just go to make a copy, it makes your own Google Sheet version of it. And you can play around, delete, type in whatever you want. Mine's protected so that everyone sees the same stuff every time. But you can always make your own copy and do whatever you like with it. So that will be the first step. Just a shout out, John. And when you do, if you look at the positional tabs, all the way up to basically conference and age hit rate columns, there should be 11 of them in every positional tab. So if you just copy and paste, yep, that's 13. Okay, go to age. Yeah, age is where it cuts off, because then we start having pre- and post-draft models, and quarterback doesn't have them, for example. But if you go here, yeah, that's 11 columns as well. So those first 11 columns can all be spliced together naturally, and after that, you've just got to wonder about which stats you want. That takes a little bit more work, but there are a lot of simple ways of doing it, especially in Sheets. If you don't mess with the order, you could just scan across, copy and paste all the columns into your new tab, and have a hybrid tab with wide receiver and running back together. Now, if you're adding something like breakout age that running backs doesn't have, you'll need the columns, but then you'll need to put a null value for all the running backs, so just a dash, double tap, and it fills out the columns. So I do want to make some form of content or instructional thing for John about how to do that, but I did, with this new update, I just wanted to mention it, that those first 11 columns at least, and all the tabs, can literally just be merged together with a copy and paste. And I thought that might be interesting to more people than just John, so throwing it out there. Alright, something interesting, I don't know, I've been doing a lot of videos on this thing now I mostly want to get to prospect evaluation, but there's still a few cool things in here that I haven't mentioned yet, and a few new additions, I've basically broken it down by 12 draft picks through the NFL draft, so picks 0 to 12, and you can see the average. There's some pretty stark cutoffs. I was talking with Jordan McNamara on his book launch party thing, and he was talking about specifically at running backs how there's a strong cutoff in the first 10. And this kind of shows it. Let me go big screen here for a second and zoom in. Any second now. Right. So we scan across, look at the running back section, and you can see within the first 12 picks, like running backs are expected to get 14 expected points within the first year of the NFL per game. And then there's a cutoff down to even picks 12 to 24 are getting, significantly less volume on average if they're selected outside the first 12 picks. And so this kind of shows it. You can also see that target share drops off even more dramatically. And this is just the average of first year NFL stats for the running back position, as indicated up here. Based on their draft pick. You can also see it obviously a little more starkly when you go by draft round, but where Jordan was talking more about, draft pick, I thought it'd be interesting to have some sort of bucket. And by doing it 12 picks at a time, it actually essentially divides each round into 3 roughly. Obviously, I don't, pick 36 is actually eking into the second round, but it's the best bucket I found to have, results for every position across every column. Breaking it down by a 3-pick bucket or a 5-pick bucket was highly interesting, but it didn't get you results everywhere. And obviously, you're talking sometimes about one player being drafted within that range, even with a 20-year history. So yeah, I bumped it a little bit. Wide receivers, interestingly enough, all the way into the third round, have some decent expectation of target share, which drops off into like a second bucket after the fourth to undrafted free agent, basically expected to get 6% target share or less, and my big head's in the way, so let me do this. These are the columns I was talking about there. So you can just get some level of expectation of what players on average get if they're drafted at different draft rounds and also within different draft picks. I kind of already have my benchmarks, but assuming lots of people turn up that don't, or maybe have never looked at it that way before, I thought that would be interesting for you all. Conference hit rates tab is basically about the same. It's just the average for yards per team pass attempt and yards per team pass attempt. If players have 30 touches at each position, to give you some sort of benchmark of the expectation for conference. And as someone asked, within running back, wide receiver, and tight end, I have all stats adjusted by team and also by conference expectation. So here you'll see the conference expectation tab. So that's how far over or under they were, what on average players with 30 touches or more at their position did within that stat. I also have some higher benchmarks, like when it's adjusted by age, like yards team pass attempt here in wide receiver, that's looking at the average that players did if they had a top 24 season in their conference at different ages, and this is how far above or under those scores for good players in the NFL actually were for their career, and you can see it broken down by their first year, best year, last year, or as always, if you scan across, you can see the individual age seasons for all these stats as well. So database is updated. Preston Williams has been added. Someone pointed out that Preston Williams had been left out in the last update, so I managed to add him in again. It actually turned out his draft information was missing. He was listed as unknown instead of undrafted free agent, so I fixed that. A few players who have already decided to go back to school instead of playing or going for the draft this season, like Khalil Shakir here, I redesignated them as 2022 picks. The only reason that happens is basically because Patreons say, hey, dude, he's not a draft pick this year. I don't know. I'm waiting until it's all decided and there can be no more before I even look. But, Patreons are keeping me honest. Rashad Bateman still hits the top of my list based on the new pre-draft score. Spencer, what was his name in running back? Spencer someone or other. I have a lot of 22 running backs, actually, but 2022 prospects. Spencer Brown is actually at the top of my pre-draft model for running backs, but as someone mentioned to me recently in a Twitter DM, my models test well, but I have big misses, and Spencer Brown might be an example of that. Travis Etienne is obviously probably the name that should be on the top, followed closely by Najee Harris. Chuba Hubbard gets divided by another probably big miss, but player I'm interested in, Jamal Jefferson here. And at the tight end position, the only guy who's really sticking out, and I did models on all these videos and talked about the early guys standing out in them, and I actually put them in a playlist so you can just concentrate on the prospect models if you want. Someone again asked about that, but the guy standing out in 2021 class is Kyle Pitts. As I mentioned in that video, like he's testing he's got as good a score as Vernon Davis, the last guy pretty much to have an 8 or above at tight end was Vernon Davis. He don't look like no Vernon Davis, but I'll be interested to see where his value lands and stuff like that. So, he was very productive for sure in his situation over his college career, but who knows, I guess. Anyway, it's time to get out of here. It's time to get cranking on some of these actual prospect profiles so I know what to think about these players more than what my pre-draft model says. I'm going to get to that. Appreciate you guys checking it out. I hope you enjoy the database. If you notice anything else, players missing, something weird, let me know, and I'll start. I make a note of it, and the next update I correct it. So it's only as good as we make it, you know. That's why we all get it. That's why it's public. Hopefully, we can all work together to beat the nerds, beat the real nerds. That's the goal. All right, appreciate it. I'm getting out of here. Thanks very much. Check it out. It's pinned to my Twitter timeline, it's pinned to Patreon, and it's free thanks to the hard work of these little grinders in the sources tab. Be sure to check those guys out, okay? Appreciate it. Bye. Thanks. Hope you're having a nice day. Bye.